downturns that we've seen or business cycles that we've seen. So we're having to learn, we're having to, to be very careful about the judgments that we make, I would say. So we don't assume that these regularities will just repeat themselves automatically.
Thank you, Chair Powell. I'm Mara Mokwe with Bloomberg. There seems to be quite a difference between what the anecdotal data are telling us, such as the very recent downbeat beige book, and the hard data. Do you take those anecdotes seriously? That is, that the economy and labor market are cooling much more rapidly than what's shown in the data?
So I do take that seriously, and the beige book is great. What's even greater is hearing the Reserve Bank presidents come in and talk about their conversations with businesses and business leaders and workers and people in the nonprofit sector in their districts. But I'll tell you, it's a pretty, the picture is not one of a slowing or, a really bad economy. It's one of, there are spots of weakness and there are regions where growth is stronger than other regions. But overall, it's, again, look at the aggregate data. Aggregate data is, particularly PDFP, private domestic final purchases, is 2.6%, and that's a good indicator of private demand. So we listen to all of that, and it does. I think it's important to listen to anecdotal data and not just look at the aggregate data. Especially, it's very hard. GDP data can be volatile quarter to quarter, so it's just hard to measure economic activity. There are a lot of. It's just difficult to do. So I look at both. But I wouldn't say that the anecdotal data is uniformly downbeat. It's more mixed.
Thank you. Jolene Kent with CBS News. Chair Powell, thanks for taking our questions today. You have consistently said that the Fed does not consider politics in making decisions. With a possible September rate cut on the table, it would be less than 2 months before the election, and former President Trump reportedly said that cutting rates so close to the election is something the central bank knows they shouldn't be doing. What's your response, and do you believe it's possible to really remain apolitical with a September rate cut?
I absolutely do, and I think it's, first of all, we haven't made any decisions. I would say it this way. Haven't made any decision about any future meeting. I don't know what the data will reveal or how that will affect the appropriate path of our policy. I really don't know. I do know how we will make that assessment. That's what I do know. So if you take a step back, the current situation, again, is inflation has come down much closer to our goal, and that's happened while unemployment has remained low. We're very tightly focused on using our tools to try to foster that state of affairs continuing. That's at each of our meetings and all of our decisions, our focus is strictly on that and really on nothing else, doing our part, whatever that part may be. We're using our best thinking. We're doing our best to understand the economy. We follow academics. We follow the many commentators who bless us with their commentary. But we don't change anything in our approach to address other factors like the political calendar. Congress has, we believe, ordered us to conduct our business in a non-political way at all times, not just some of the time. I'll say this too. We never use our tools to support or oppose a political party, a politician, or any political outcome. The bottom line is, if we do our very best to do our part and we stick to our part, that will benefit all Americans. If we get it right, the economy will be stronger, we'll have price stability, people will find jobs, wages will rise in real terms, everyone will benefit. So that's what we believe, and that's how we will always act. This is my 4th presidential election at the Fed. I can tell you this is how we think about it. This is what we do. So anything that we do before, during, or after the election will be based on the data, the outlook, and the balance of risks, and not on anything else.
Just a quick follow-up. Do your economic forecasts and models take into account the two very different economic plans of these two presidential candidates, Harris and Trump? And if so, how?
No, we do not do that. We absolutely do not do that. We don't know who's going to win. We don't know what they're going to do. We don't act as though we know, and we just can't do that. We basically, we have our forecast. We can run simulations of different potential policies, but we would never try to make policy decisions based on the outcome of an election that hasn't happened yet. That would just be a line we would never cross. You know, we're a non-political agency. We don't want to be involved in politics in any way, so we wouldn't do that.
Nicholas.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Nicholas Jasinski from Barron's Magazine. There hasn't been a dissenting vote on an interest rate decision in some time. If the data do evolve as you expect, if you do have more confidence by the September meeting, do you get the sense that there will be a unanimous vote on an interest rate move in September? Or basically, are there meaningful differences in committee members' assessments of how much more confidence is needed?
So there are always meaningful differences. There are, and we talk a lot before, during, and after the meeting. We do have a very robust discussion of these things. You're right that in most cases, people, if they feel heard and they feel that their position has been given serious consideration, for most people, most of the time, that's going to be enough. There are dissents. That's fine. You know, no one has a veto. No single person has a veto. So it just is a question of who will vote for and against. We've had dissents. We haven't had so many during the pandemic era, and it just may be that we felt more united because we felt under a lot of pressure to get things right. But before the pandemic, we had plenty of dissents, and dissents happen. It's part of the process. There's nothing wrong with dissents, and if it happens, it happens.
Jean.
Hello, Jean Young with MNI Market News. Is a 50 basis point cut as a first cut at all likely or even on the table? Thank you.
I don't want to say, I don't want to be really specific about what we're going to do, but that's not something we're thinking about right now.
Jennifer.
Of course, I haven't made any decisions at all as of today.
Thank you, Chair Bell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. Not to get into the minutes, but you said there was a real discussion today for moving at this meeting. I'm curious if you could provide some more color on the nature of the discussion today at the meeting about a possible rate cut as early as September.
Well, so, the way the meeting is set up, the first day there's a discussion of financial stability because it's every other meeting we have that. And then we have an opportunity to comment on that. Then we have an economic go-around. And then this morning we have the monetary policy go-around. And I think in people's economic go-around and in their monetary policy go-around, people express their views about this. And there's a range of views. People, as you will know from the speeches that they give, people have different ways of thinking about the economy. And so in the minutes, we'll lay this out in a much better way than I can do off the cuff. But there's a range of perspectives, and but I do think that we're a consensus-driven organization. People come together. This was a unanimous decision, and at the end, everyone supported the outcome, not just the voters, but everyone. So I would also say some people examined the possibility, the case for moving at this meeting, but overwhelmingly the sense of the committee was not at this meeting, but as soon as the next meeting, depending on how the data come in.
But there is a growing sense of confidence that you could move at the next meeting, assuming
Yes.
inflation comes.
Well, assuming that the totality of the data supports such an outcome, no question. That is the case. That, as I mentioned, we think that the time it's approaching, and if we do get the data that we hope we get, then a reduction in our policy rate could be on the table at the September meeting.
Hi, Chair Powell, Nancy Marshall-Genzer with Marketplace. Former New York President Bill Dudley wrote an op-ed in Bloomberg earlier this month, which you probably saw, in which he said, quote, "It might already be too late to fend off a recession by cutting rates. Dawdling now unnecessarily increases the risk." Is he wrong?
So this is the judgment that we have to make, and we're well aware of the judgment. We're as I've said, we have to weigh the risk of going too soon against the risk of going too late. If we go too soon, we can, we had a lot of advice, to go ahead and cut after the 7 good months of last year. We didn't. We said we needed to see more. Then we saw some higher inflation. We've seen 1 quarter of good inflation, and we've seen the labor market move quite a bit. And as I mentioned, I don't think it needs to, cool off any more for us to get the inflation results that are related to the labor market. Not all inflation is, of course. So I think it's a difficult judgment to make, and what you see is the judgment of the committee is that time is drawing near. That time could be in September, if the data support that.
And have the chances of a hard landing increased?
So I don't know whether they've increased. I think they're low. I think this is, you don't see any reason to think that this economy is either overheating or sharply weakening. That's just not in the data right now. What's in the data right now is an economy that's growing at a solid pace, a labor market that has cooled off, but nonetheless, unemployment is low. The data overall show a strong labor market, so that's really what you see. It's neither an overheating economy nor is it a sharply weakening economy. It's kind of what you would want to see, but of course, the job is never done. We're watching to see, which way the economy heads, and I think if we are to respond to weakness, we're certainly, well equipped to do that. But that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is strong economic activity and a good labor market and inflation coming down.
Greg.
Thank you so much. In the minutes of the June meeting that came out a few weeks ago, there was a discussion about communications, and some Fed officials said maybe the Fed wasn't as clear enough about its reaction function. And when I talk to the commentators who bless you with their comments, they say that they really don't have a sense of what is going to judge, maybe not the first cut, but the pace of the cuts going forward. They don't have a good sense of that. Is there anything you can say, like, how will we judge that?
I think the reality is that forecasters, and this isn't just the Fed by any means, forecasters have been continually surprised by, for example, the strength of the economy last year. So I think we have to be pretty humble about giving forward guidance about this, that, and the other thing. We need to be pretty careful about that. And, when you're saying you're going to be data-driven, of course, it's always what the data, how they affect the outlook and the balance of risks, but nobody has great vision deep into the future. In terms of a reaction function, that's a long time discussion that people have had forever. I think people have understood for a long time, actually, that we were very focused on bringing down inflation. Nobody was really confused about that. The data have, again, you've seen significant improvement in inflation just for the last quarter. Markets move around on the data, really, not so much. It's not really what we're going to do. It's more just that the data keep coming in, and markets are very, very responsive to that data right now.
Go to Jeff for the last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to change gears on you just a little bit from all of the rate talk and whatnot. With Fed now being in the books for a little over a year, there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about central bank digital currency, and wondering if you could give us an update on where things are with that. Is that considered a dead issue now? Is it still something that's being discussed within the committee, and what's happening with that?
It's not something that comes up at all in the FOMC. So more broadly, digital finance is an area that has really significant implications for payments generally, instant payments, and it's something that's going to really change the way it's going to make more efficient and hopefully safer and all those things, the way payments are made around the world. And so we have people who are researching that and trying to keep up to speed, because we play an important role in the payments sector, both as a convener and as an operator too. In terms of a CBDC, there's really nothing new going on. There's not much going on at all. We don't have the authority to issue a retail CBDC that's available to the public. We're not seeking that authority. So what we're doing is keeping up with developments there. Pretty much every major central bank in the world is at least doing that. Some of them are actually seriously looking at implementing a CBDC. We're really not. We're really just evaluating, the story and what's happening out there. I think it's work that we need to be doing which could be very beneficial down the road. But we don't have on a CBDC. We don't have any plan. We would need to go to Congress, and we have no plan to do that. No one here has decided that we think it's a good idea yet. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowen.
Hey, how are you?